of the whole meeting for Monday, October 16th, 2023. And our first order of business for this meeting is a roll call.
Commissioner Decker.
Present.
Commissioner Hess.
Present.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Present.
Commissioner Juarez.
Here.
Commissioner Pradel.
Present.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Present.
Mayor Anderson.
Here. Thank you, Clerk Borling. Next, communications. Manager Ritzma.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Now is the opportunity for public comments here at the Committee of the Whole meeting. Just a reminder, for the Committee of the Whole, the public comment individual period is 2 minutes long. Please state your name and whether you live in the city. And there will also be a public comment period at our regular business meeting that starts at 7. We will be starting with individuals that are here in the chambers, but also you can call in with a public comment. That number is 888-382-9556. And our Mike Smith here will be managing those calls this evening. So we'll start here in the chambers. Yes?
Hello, I'm Nehemiah Scudder, which was not my first name, but I made it legal about 4 years ago. I said to keep the name Nehemiah Scudder as my legal name for quite a while to come, but not forever. Maybe I have to wait and see. I have a warning to put forth. The federal government is spending money wildly and not putting it back as it should. Probably the net result is the debt of our country goes up. It was $5 trillion when Barack Obama took office. He ran it up to $20 trillion, and then Trump ran it up a few more million, and we're rapidly reaching a point of no return. We're going to have a disaster if we have to pay that off in a hurry. We may reach a point, as they did in Germany before World War II, where it takes a bushel basket of big bills to buy a loaf of bread. Well, I hope it's not that bad, but things don't look promising. And nobody much is talking about it in public, so that we were thinking everybody's afraid to mention it for some reason. I'm the only one talking about it. We're going to have an inflation that's like we've never had before. I see I only have 20 seconds remaining. Well, I'm not running for city commission this time, but maybe next time I will. And in the meantime, I'll try to keep you informed. The federal government has lost its AAA rating. And I guess my time is up now. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the chambers that would like to take advantage of this opportunity?
Good evening. Thank you for hearing me. I'm not a resident of the city of Kalamazoo. I live in the township. But what happens in Kalamazoo reflects on me. And what I'm concerned about is up until yesterday, Black Lives Matter has been endorsing what Hamas has done in Israel. I think that's abhorrent that they did that, and we have this organization on our public street. And I think the commission should rethink having Black Lives Matter on our street for what they endorsed. We have to remember also that you sit under the 10 Commandments written in Hebrew, and Israeli presence in Kalamazoo goes back to the 1800s with Edward Israel. And I just would like the commission to rethink endorsing Black Lives Matter. They started backpedaling in the last day, probably so they wouldn't have 3 mansions instead of 2. But I just think the commission should rethink that endorsing Black Lives Matter in Kalamazoo. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the chambers this evening that wants to take advantage of this public comment period? Seeing no one? Mike Smith, has anybody called in with a comment for this meeting?
No calls.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you handling that. We are now down to our work session topics. So Manager Ritzma, it is all yours.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And this evening, we have a presentation on downtown, and we've got several presenters. I think I call forward Assistant City Manager Rebecca Kick to introduce all of our presenters and give us an update on downtown and the parking.
City Manager, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Nice to see you all tonight. We are really looking forward to giving you a nice presentation about what the city's been doing in downtown for the past year, and then some of the plans that we also have coming forward. So first for our agenda, I'm going to introduce Grant Fletcher, who is our Vice Chair of our Downtown Development Authority, Downtown Economic Growth Authority, and Paul Thuringer, who is our Economic Development Supervisor. Each one of us are going to go through some of the slides in turns. We're going to kick it off with Grant to talk about the Downtown Development Authority and the Downtown Economic Growth Authority's strategic vision. So we thought we'd start with the strategic vision. Really, Paul's going to go over the slides that talk about what the city's role has been in the last year, so you can really get an idea of how the city stepped in versus the Downtown Kalamazoo Incorporated firm that used to do work in the downtown. And then lastly, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the parking management structure so that you can understand how the city has taken back the structure of parking. And then I'm going to talk to you about some pretty exciting projects that we have going on as well. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Grant Fletcher.
Welcome, Mr. Fletcher.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me, and thank you for the introduction. So I'm going to do my best to give a brief and rather high-level background of how we got to the point that we're at and hand it off to PJ. So the Downtown Economic Growth Authority and Downtown Development Authority, they derive their resources from two primary mechanisms, a 2-mill levy in the downtown and a tax increment finance district that is an overlapping boundary. Those two resources in combination, they amount to a fairly modest amount of money, and over the past few decades, they have almost been upside down, the tax increment finance district in particular. So the authorities found themselves under financial duress, unable to execute a lot of the work that they had accumulated over the course of the past 4 decades, which prompted us to undergo a strategic planning effort with our partners from Yard & Company. So through that effort, if we could, can I advance slides or do you? Okay, gotcha. These are outputs from the strategic planning work, mission, vision, and then a few highlights. Fundamentally, we aim to ensure that downtown is vibrant and accessible. And when we think about that, we want full storefronts, we want representation from all areas of our community to feel welcomed, and we want our downtown to really flourish, a dynamic mix of businesses and activities, right? The authorities, one of their primary functions, which are allowable under the state statute, is that they can plan and recommend. And so we want to make sure that we are doing our best to marshal resources to make sure that we can recommend to the city how we think monies can be spent to most effectively advance the mission and the vision for the Downtown Economic Growth Authority and the Downtown Development Authority. And thirdly, we want to make sure that the purpose for those two authorities being is clearly understood and that we are acting consistently within those lanes. Over the last 40 years, I would say the two authorities have suffered from mission creep to a high degree and have begun to do a lot of work that was just asked of them. It wasn't necessarily always within the initial scope, the original intended purpose of the authorities, but They were needs that were recognized in and around the downtown, that the authorities at one point in time had resources that the city necessarily did not. So they stepped in and started doing a lot of this work. And by the time the resources started to run dry in 2017 and 18, it was an enormous amount of work. So they were reinvented, which brings us largely to where we are today. There's a pretty widespread misunderstanding or misconception about what those authorities exist to do and what is the work that is core to their reason for being, right? So this strategic planning session really narrowed the focus of these two authorities. We really got down to the fundamentals of what can make a downtown exceptional and how we can be complementary to the work that other organizations in our city is doing, as well as the city itself. We don't want to be redundant. We want to optimize resources. So as we worked through the process, we acknowledged that there were some challenges and also some opportunities. I think the things most notable is that we needed to redistribute core work. Like I said, they had amassed an inordinate amount of work, far more than was reasonable for these authorities to execute. So we worked with our partner organizations through the strategic planning process to redistribute some of that work so that the groups that make the most sense are the groups that are tasked with doing that work. Some of that landed with the city of Kalamazoo, because it made sense. Some of it landed with other organizations in the community because it made more sense for them to work on it. This is mostly what we came up with. We refer to it as the first 16 feet. And if you look at the diagram up here, it's really everything from the curb up the first 16 feet of a storefront. Places where people are dining outside, walking into storefronts, passing each other on the sidewalk, hopefully interacting with vehicular traffic in the safest possible way. We want to really curate and activate those first 16 feet. We recognize that there are other entities in our community that are doing great work, redevelopment work. They are doing site-specific redevelopment work, and they have great resources to redevelop entire parcels. But there are many parcels in between those extravagant, beautiful, exciting redevelopment projects that also require attention and are complementary. So we want to make sure that we're taking care of those vacant spaces, the in-between spaces as well. And we believe that these authorities can do an effective job of that with the resources they have available to them. We also want to move people through and around our downtown. We're going to reference the use of breadcrumbs to do this. There are many nodes of activity throughout downtown Kalamazoo. We often focus on the mall, maybe just a couple blocks of the mall, but there are many other points where we can try to move people to. And as we move them there, we can excite the experience with public art and safer pedestrian thoroughfares. We want to make sure that every area of our downtown is attractive and welcoming and vibrant and thriving. And one way to do that is to make sure people want to move from one center of gravity to another. And we've worked closely with city staff to do some of that. You likely see it when you walk around downtown, right? Alleyway activations, Bates Alley, Exchange Place Alley. Those are fun and new ways to make the experience of walking from the mall to Bell's more enjoyable. This is just a blow up of that first diagram. I think it's important to note that a lot of this work is already happening, right? And a lot of this work is fundamentally complementary to the work that community planning, economic development, and many other arms of the city are doing a fantastic job with. So we really want this to fit in. We don't want to be redundant. Again, we want to optimize resources. Again, through the strategic planning process, we identified a lot of work that the DDA and DEGA had accumulated over the course of time. And what you see here is an illustration of how that work has been redistributed, and in the future, where we imagine and hope that the DDA and DEGA will really be able to operate and excel. We established some milestones. In full disclosure, this is a graphic that was created by the strategic planning consultant, and some of these things might be amended or adjusted as time goes by. But we wanted to accomplish some things in the first year, and we've done that with the great support from the city of Kalamazoo. Alleyway activations, right? We've revived Bates Alley. We've begun the process of activating the Exchange Place Alley, and there's more to come. We want to make sure that as we move forward, we're taking good care of the resources that we do have and identifying new resources so that this work can continue and expand. And we want to make sure that as we grow into this new vision for these two authorities in years 8 and 10 and maybe beyond, that we have built a mechanism that allows these authorities to do this good work, do it effectively, and expand it. Not necessarily expand the scope of the work, but expand the breadth of people who benefit from this work, the number of businesses that can benefit from the work, the number of storefronts that can benefit from the 2 mil and the TIF. So with that, I believe I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Thurn here.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher.
Good evening,
Welcome.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. Thank you. I get the fun slides, they're just a bunch of words on the graphs, but a lot of work goes into this. The DDA and the DEGA, as Grant mentioned, did have a big amount of scope creep. So it has taken a lot of city staff, a lot of time and energy over the last year to put together a plan to do this. So what you see in front of you is the organizational chart of the work that is being done. It is working with all city departments to manage the administrative needs of downtown and with vendors and contracts and to coordinate with all departments doing the work of the downtown. On the left is infrastructure. That is mainly public parks and rec and public services. You can see all the things they're doing from mall maintenance to trash service to repairing the Portland Loo to pedestrian lighting. Next is events that's done by Parks and Rec through their process. They help lease and rent out all of the sites around downtown, including the festival site and Bates Alley and Haymarket Alley. Communication staff also works on the website and social media and press releases. Parking has moved over to CPED. The parking strategy implementation, parklets, bicycle racks, all a part of the mobility coordinator contract. Development is still with CPED, new and redevelopment project support. That's our department. That's what we do. We're used to doing it, working with the DEGA, the DDA, internal staff, and also the MEDC to try to bring projects to fruition. And financial management is all done through, or mostly done through management services. CPED is in a supportive role. We also do the board administration for the DEGA and the DDA board. That is done with me and my staff. We are pretty much the clerk of that board. We help set agendas, work with the board committees, and coordinate with board committees and directors to bring items forward. There are a number of committees, as you see listed on your site: executive, project and finance, events and marketing, policy and recruitment and retention. And here's some other items that formerly housed with DKI. We administer the Downtown Dollars program in CPED and with also management services. Arcadia Festival site in the Bates Alley and Haymarket Alley are done with City Parks and Rec, as I said. Holiday events are mostly farmed out with outside contractors, and that is the Kalamazoo Experiential Learning Center does most of that. We're going to pick up the social district management in CPED. We already started to do it now. We will continue that. We're going to also do redevelopment liquor licenses within CPED. I will actually be bringing a policy update back to this committee. DDA and DEGA formerly was a part of the city commission policy on redevelopment liquor licenses, and we want to kind of phase them out, so more to come on that. Parking management is also, as I said, part of that. And I'm going to hand it off to Assistant City Manager Kick.
Thank you, Paul. So, like I mentioned in the introduction, I was going to briefly talk to you about how parking management is. A couple meetings ago, we terminated the lease with the Downtown Development Authority, who was managing our parking system. And so what we did ahead of that was we had hired a parking consultant called Mission North. And that contract has been overseen by Christina Anderson, our Deputy Director of Community Planning and Economic Development, and Anthony Ladd, our Assistant Director at Public Works. So they are kind of in two roles. Anthony, because in our building authority guide that oversees all of our assets, is really held in Public services and all of the planning work that is done in terms of how the blueprint gets managed, the parking blueprint, which is our plan, and what we kind of do first. We do that together with planning and public services together. So Christine and Anthony at the head of that. Rob Bacigalupi is the gentleman at Mission North who helps us coordinate that. Now, he coordinates all of our meetings. He also oversees the contract currently with ABM, who is also known as Central City. So they do all of the parking enforcement, would do any parking meter bagging or any of that work. So Rob really acts like city staff to us in terms of his parking coordination. So I'm going to cover for you some of those downtown projects in progress. Where do they come from? They come from a variety of plans. One, which you just heard of from Grant, which was done by Yard and Company earlier this year, the Downtown Strategic Plan. But the root of all of these is Imagine Kalamazoo, of course. And we also had a study done earlier this year, which was with the University of Notre Dame, which really helped us hone in on some of those urban connections. So where do the budgets come from for these plans? One of them is community development block grants. We had $300,000 allocated last year to do the planning study for these 4 projects that I'm going to show you. We also allocated $500,000 of American Rescue Plan Act dollars to implement these focused projects in alley activation, public art installation, and some of the decorative lighting that has been put up in the alleys. We also wrote an additional grant that was awarded for the M.D. Ellis clock, which is on Michigan Avenue out in front near the Wine Loft and Memories Bridal. That clock has been here since the 1920s, and it had fallen into disrepair. And so we wrote a grant for about $6,000 to have that clock restored. So we also have some pending grant funds that we are also looking to accomplish this work. We have grants with local foundations that we are looking to match that $500,000 and that $300,000 that we have allocated for construction and landscaping of the projects once we have them designed. Additionally, we are looking to continue our ambassador service for cleanliness and beautification, and we also have additional grants out to continue to pay for that service. And public art grants, because there are some very specific foundations that have participated in mural festivals. I have reached out to them, and we have also completed applications to help match some of our public art grant dollars in the hopes to have our own mural festival here in Kalamazoo next year. So these are the breadcrumbs that we started to talk about. Now, these are core projects. So this is kind of the beginning. So know that these are kind of 4 very tight core downtown projects, but what we really hope to do is continue to utilize Imagine Kalamazoo, the strategic plan, and the Notre Dame plan to go to the next tier and then the next tier, because we know that again, like these projects will really connect the core and create some walkability, and then we can get to the next tier where we can really start to connect with the neighborhoods, and then the next tier, how we get, again, even closer in with the neighborhoods. Downtown, you know, is surrounded by North Side, East Side, Edison, Vine, you've got Stewart, so we've got a lot, even to some extent, you know, West Main Hill. So we've got a lot of neighborhoods that we need to connect to, but we're starting with this core group first and then working our way out. So the first one was a project that the Kalamazoo Downtown Partnership had started to do engagement on. So we worked from their engagement first, and we've been doing engagement throughout the summer at different art hops and meetings that have been held about what could be done to activate Exchange Place. What kind of artwork could we see there? And the lighting project that was always anticipated was hung earlier this summer. And then the second part of this is activating near Farmers Alley, a plaza that has been kind of overgrown. And since Bates Alley was done, and there's a new event business, The Experience, which is also on Farmers Alley, this area really needs to be highlighted and celebrated. And this plaza could really be a great turning point, whether you're going towards the mall or whether you're going towards Bates Alley or whether you're enjoying something that's happening on Farmers Alley. So we've been doing, again, more engagement on how many people really come through this space. And when we hired our consultant, it was kind of funny because we showed them the map and they were like, really? This weird little space by this alley? And then we showed them, like, look, this is how much traffic. Like 1,000 people will go through this alleyway in a week. So it gets significant traffic. And so we really do need to improve the concrete there, the lighting, make it a really exciting place. You could see people really hanging out here. And another place that gets a lot of traffic is near the KVCC Museum. So you can see where the little plaza is behind the KVCC Anna Whitten Hall, and the museum is just to the north of that. They've got the Radisson Hotel just to the south of that. And this is where the creek kind of splits, and there's a big plaza in between each end. And it has just been left alone. It's a lonely place. It's now a very well-lit place, but it's lonely and it doesn't have very nice landscaping. You could really imagine a lot of people who are working in a lot of these buildings and living in these buildings going out there, eating their lunches, having some picnic tables, having some bistro lighting. You could really, again, make this a more exciting place. And we've got the Arcadia Festival Place on the east side, and we've got the new event center coming towards the west side. This creek is going to become much more activated. And so we're trying to take kind of the first bite of that apple and really understand how we can make this a more vibrant place for people to want to hang out. The next space is the north end of the mall. And so again, this is another space where we don't have a lot of retail activity, except the really great Vintage in the Zoo event that happens in the plaza and on Eleanor Street. And it's really disconnected because the way that the landscaping is done on the North Mall is right down the middle. So when you're on the south end of the mall looking up, you see trees. You don't see the activity, you don't see the excitement that's happening even when Vintage in the Zoo is happening. Sometimes a few tents kind of come down, but it's not making that really tight social connection. And vice versa, right? If you're at the top end of the mall on Eleanor Street and you look down, you may not know that there's more going on even further south. So we have talked to a lot of people about how they feel about the North Mall and what could be improved about the North Mall, even if it's just, hey, should we repeat what's on the south end at the north end so it just opens it up and you can see all the way down? And just something as simple as that, people are like, yes, that would be great. If I could see down, if we could have any kind of festival, like spill all the way down the street, making it more like a festival street. How could this, facilitate non-motorized transportation better? What could this North Mall do to become a little more active, even if it's just pedestrian traffic? And then the next piece is actually the very end of the South Mall where the State Theater is. This is, again, another portion where you get to the end of the beautification of the Kalamazoo Mall, the pavers, the snow melt, and then you go, I guess it's done. And you turn around and you walk back. And you don't realize that there's a really cool pet store down there. There's a furniture store. There's more vintage clothing. There's Blue Dolphin. There's Harvey's. There's things that are going on that you can't see beyond the intersection if you don't feel like you want to walk any further. And if you're a visitor and you're not quite sure like what's going on, it just kind of looks like it's a dead end. So again, this is another opportunity for us to support a couple different things. One, the businesses that are down there, how can we really help highlight and get people to walk further down this street? How can we help make the street look vibrant and creative and interesting? And there's also the State on the Street events that happen here. When they are closed off, we put up the construction barriers, and then you're not sure, is the street under construction or is there an event going on? And so that's, again, how we can bring design details to this space, bollards that come up out of the street, or other planters or ways that we can block up the street, lighting up above, make it look more like we know the success of Bates Alley. We know why that has become such a great place for music and activity. Taking some of those lessons learned and applying them to the south end of this street is the feedback that we've been getting from our engagement. And so helping the south end of the mall really, again, attract people and attract some vibrancy so that we've got these activated ends that happen within our core. What is really telling about all of these pieces is that they're just a few blocks away from each other. Whether you're on the North Mall, you're a block from Arcadia Festival site, 2 blocks from the new arena. You're a block from the Radisson Hotel, from the core of the downtown retail and restaurants, whether you will go up Michigan Avenue or you go south down Kalamazoo Avenue or you go towards Michigan News Agency and La Familia and the restaurants that are on the west side. You are literally blocks away, but sometimes when things aren't bright, when the landscaping doesn't look great, when those little pieces are missing, it just makes us feel like, no, I think I'd rather just get in my car and drive somewhere else. So we're really trying to lay these breadcrumbs down, make sure that people know that our downtown is really fun and walkable and that they can visit multiple events during a day. So what's next? We've got lots of different things that we're planning on for downtown. One is our continued research that we're working on for downtown public restroom locations. We have really got some great information we hope to be able to share with you soon about this is one area that has been really innovative, actually. I have about 4 different options now of different types of restrooms, public restrooms that are being placed in different urban situations. So I'm making a lot of different calls to other municipalities, asking them how it's working out, what's the maintenance, what's the cost, like what has your experience been in the past year after installing this. So we're getting a lot of good information and background so that we can begin to make the right choices for our community. Next Monday, we have the opening of our new public safety station on the North Mall. So we're really looking forward to their presence again. Also, the Arcadia Festival Place. That's been something that has been on the top of mind of a lot of people. And so one is how do we really bring the festival place into 2024, 2025, and beyond for the new types of festivals and ideas and planning that people have brought forward to us, and how do we activate it on a regular basis, not just 8 times a year when our really big festivals come, but how can we make it a place that people want to be all the time. And then lastly, as Grant alluded to in his presentation about the downtown finances, we hope that we will be able to bring you some recommendations early next year to the middle of next year. Again, this is something we've been spending a lot of time and energy on, is thinking about the financial sustainability of the downtown and how to bring that to fruition. So thank you, and if you have any questions, the 3 of us are here for you.
Thank you very much, Assistant City Manager Kick. Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Praedel?
Just thank you so much, Assistant City Manager Kick. Quick question for you as well. I know there have been a lot of transitions with downtown in relation to CPED in the city in the last year or so, and I guess I was wondering if you give kind of a candid take in terms of like what that experience has been like working together, envisioning how that relationship strengthens and grows, and just get your perspective on that.
Oh, sure. Thanks for asking, Commissioner Praedel. I think the biggest lesson learned, I think we've all had, is one, we certainly, because we have not taken on downtown in the last 30 years, like Grant alluded to, wow, they were doing a lot of work. And so getting to a narrowed scope of what the city should be helping the DDA and the DEGA with is something we're still trying to wrap our arms around. But in terms of staff capacity, I think we all wish we had about 3 more arms. It's a lot of work, and it has been a lot of work. Both of us really trying to give each other as much information as we possibly can. I think the information exchange was difficult for both of us because the downtown partnership was gone by the time the city was really coming in and helping the boards. And so we were both kind of in a space of, okay, well, we can reinvent this. If we can start from scratch, let's start from scratch. So our working relationship has been incredible, and it's been one of incredible patience. But I think we all wish we could do more, and we're doing more, but it's just the capacity that we both have.
I was also just curious if you could just kind of share some of the thought process that's gone into our event planning. And I know one of the aspects is that there have been a number of instances where different components of event planning have been, outsourced, to different folks, depending on what the event is or a festival or whatever. And could you just kind of share how that thought process went into creating the existing structure for events?
Sure. It's still one that's a little bit in clay. So the way that events used to be done with the Kalamazoo Downtown Partnership is they actually had a staff that could walk you through how to do an event at the Arcadia Festival site, which there's like a 45-page manual on how to do an event at the festival site. You know, where the water is, where the electricity is, how you have to power wash the site, what kind of food you can have, how to get your liquor license, all of that. We needed to hire someone who had that expertise, which we're lucky to have at the Kalamazoo Experiential Learning Center, to be able to get our staff at Parks and Recreation up to speed on how to do an event in that space. Additionally, it was learning how to do an event at Bates Alley. So how was Beats on Bates run? How was Workout Wednesday done in Bronson Park or in Arcadia Festival site? We had a manual that Deb Droppers at KELC was able to create for us so that we have a bit of a guide. So that now when our Parks and Rec staff has now taken over all of the application process, so if you want to have an event at the festival site, at Bates Alley, you know, and of course all of the parks, you will go one point of contact through Parks and Rec, and then you have KELC who can really help hold your hand through the entire process. So that's how we're doing it right now.
This is kind of just more of a comment than a question as well, but I think one thing, you know, I've heard pretty loud and clear from just about everybody is just that, I guess reservations about the whole public-private restroom partnership idea. Not to say that that couldn't potentially be a component of the strategy, but just I guess how realistic that is and sustainable, and just thinking through any ways that we could potentially, even if it's on a temporary basis, figure out a way that we could create restrooms that really everybody in the community can benefit from. Yeah, I know that it's been a long time coming. I know that there are things in the works. I appreciate that very much, but just want to emphasize and stress that I know that that is something that I hear overwhelmingly a lot from people in the community that they really want to see, and they've been anxious to see.
Absolutely, Commissioner Pradel.
Yeah.
We continue to work on that as well.
Yeah, and then just one other question as well in terms of just parking and parking evolution of any major changes that you anticipate or exciting things coming with that.
And I won't jump the gun too quickly because we have just had a request for proposals process that will be coming before you in November, before the commission in November for a new parking management contract. And at that time, we hope to be able to show you our newly updated parking blueprint. And we have another proposal out to upgrade some of our parking pay systems, including, credit card meters and things like that. So we have some really great changes coming forward, but it will be wonderful if we can just wait another month and then we can propose those to you in one package and let you know what's coming in the future as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Hess.
Hi, Director Kick. I am really happy that we're activating downtown, and it's going to be wonderful. I think it was Grant who referred to some partners that we're working with for who would be responsible then for attracting those businesses to be around those areas. So is that Southwest Michigan First? Is that the Chamber? Who is responsible for attracting businesses to our downtown?
So attraction is what I'm learning. It's a very specific job that people do. We do not have that expertise at Southwest Michigan First or at the Chamber. What we do at Community Planning and Economic Development, and Paul Thuringer and his staff, when we do get a lot of calls passed on to us from various businesses and employers, small businesses and large employers, always asking us, do you have 5,000 square feet of space in your downtown? Do you have 20,000 square feet of warehouse space, And we try to do matchmaking. It's kind of like the best we can do at the moment. The other part of it too is really focusing on retention right now, I think is more of the work that we're doing at Community Planning and Economic Development, Southwest Michigan First, and the Chamber. We really want to focus on the existing businesses that we have to make sure that we have good relationships with them and that they feel good about being in the downtown before we go focusing on trying to attract someone to the downtown. We know that we do have vacant spaces, but we also know that the developers that have those vacant spaces don't want them to be vacant, and those developers are doing a lot of work as well to try and get those spaces filled. And again, we have good partnerships with them. They know the resources that we have in terms of, our facade grants, our white box grants, our technical assistance, the financial components that we might be able to offer someone that they are trying to attract to their space. So we're in good partnership with the developers that do have empty spaces. We do reach out to them on a regular basis because, again, our property owner retention is just as important as our business owner retention, and having those really good relationships with them so that if we do end up getting that call, hey, I saw this listing and what do you think and who should I call? Sometimes it's all about relationships. And if we have a good relationship with that developer, then we can help pass that along, and it could end up becoming a really great attraction. But right now, we do not have like a singular person out there hunting for or searching for someone to come into our spaces. Yep, you're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. Commissioner Decker?
Thank you. I just had more of a comment. Thank you, ACM Kick, for that, and thank you, Commissioner Prado, for talking about the bathrooms and also the parking that was on my list. I think I like the changes that are coming downtown. You know, it's going to be revitalizing an area that you say hasn't been really touched for about 30 years. And I know our businesses are definitely going to appreciate that also. I will say, on behalf of former Commissioner Cunningham, the more Christmas lights you can put up, the better. I know he would appreciate that very, very much.
Sure.
And then I also just wanted to say also that within the presentation, you know, almost $800,000 has gone into what you guys have been doing, but then again, also seeking grants outside of that. You know, that's also, I always commend on the grants because that helps us get more things done on a quicker pace. And I see you light up, Rebecca, because I remember you and I having conversations and you would talk about these breadcrumbs, but I didn't quite know what you were talking about then. So I'm glad to kind of see this start to come together.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Any other questions or comments this time? All right, seeing none. I just wanted to follow up here a minute, just to remind us all some things, is that for Vice Mayor Cooney and I, we have lived through a time when there was a significant TIF resources being created in our downtown through our DDA. And I guess it's a time of feast in a certain way for downtown. And for a variety of reasons, I mean, that basically, you know, dropped to virtually nothing and has put us in a situation here where the partnership is gone and the individuals who used to do a lot of that partnership work are obviously not around any longer. So we have, I would say to some extent, we have been struggling in the aftermath of that big change and the reduced resources to determine exactly how we can move together and create the downtown that for all that we want to have. So I really do appreciate that city staff, I know that our economic development supervisor, Paul Thurngers, is becoming more involved. I know that our assistant city manager, Rebecca Kick, you've been involved with this, but more so, I guess what I would like to recognize is some of the names we don't hear, which is the members of the now consolidated DDA DEGA board. And Grant Fletcher is here as the vice chair of that board. Susan Lindeman is the chair of that board. She's out of town and wasn't able to be here. But not only on that board, but there are subcommittees of that board of people that spend a lot of time thinking about our downtown. Yeah. And this is really, once again, an example of how the on-the-ground work happens, which is individuals who care about the city spending hours and hours and hours and sometimes agonizing hours trying to find a path through challenges and get to a place where it is clear that we have a shared vision for our downtown and we were able to act on that. And I believe that we've had these shared experiences in the result of this, and that we are going to be moving forward in a more positive trajectory as we get ourselves grounded in this work and figure out what was happening and what we can do and who's going to do it. I just want to also just recognize one of those individuals who I'm sure everybody here knows, Carl Brown, who we are appointing a new member to the DDA DEGA board as one of our actions this evening. Then those board numbers are set by statute and our bylaws, so there are a specific number of positions on those boards and particular the relationships that some of those seats have to have. For example, a person who lives downtown. And we have a great new member we're appointing, and Carl Brown, who's been doing this, working on this board for approximately 10 years. This was his really official last meeting at the DDA DEGA meeting, which occurred just before this meeting. So I want to thank Carl, but he is really representative of work that happens behind the scenes that, helps us all together imagine our vision. So thank you to all the volunteers that keep doing this work. Thank you, Mr. Fletcher, for being here tonight, and look forward to good things in downtown. Manager Ritzma.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Our next item is 2023 appointee evaluation process, and our HR Director, Shelley Dusek, is going to discuss this with you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Manager, Commissioners, City Attorney. In May of 2023, the ad hoc committee that is comprised of Commissioner Pradel, Commissioner Hess, and Commissioner Hoffman reached out to HR and asked us to propose and come up with a plan to present 360 evaluations for our appointees. Our appointees are, of course, City Manager Ritzma, Attorney Liel, City Clerk Borling, and Internal Auditor Ann Videtich. I'm going to turn it over to Jessica Partello. She is our Training and Professional Development Specialist who has worked tirelessly with the ad hoc committee to come up with a great proposal for you to consider.
Thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, and City Attorney. I'm here today to discuss a full circle appraisal or 360 evaluation for the city appointed leadership. The ideal product to complete a 360 evaluation includes the ability to digitize the performance evaluation, benchmark data year over year, and create goal setting based on the results compiled through the feedback session. Human Resources would like to recommend Custom Insights Focal 360 feedback system to automate the 360 process. This tool would allow Human Resources to collect ratings and feedback from the Commission and department directors, and allow us to provide insight to appointees and city leaders to detect strengths, weaknesses, and determine areas of growth and monitor progress of development goals. If the City Commission supports this direction, the following timeline is recommended for the 2023 evaluation process. So that would kick off in November, and through December we would customize that tool. And then January 1st, we would share the evaluation tool with the commissioners. January 15th, the evaluations would be due. And then February 1st, we would share the reports with the appointees and commission.
Thank you very much. Comments and questions, commissioners? Commissioner Decker.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, can you go through that timeline again so we can write some of this down?
Yes, so November through December, we would customize the 360 evaluation. So we'll actually be taking the prior evaluation and converting it into this digitized format. And then January 1st, we would share the evaluation tool with commissioners. January 15th, we will have the evaluations due. And then February 1st, we would send the summary reports and present them to appointees and commission.
All right, so that's very helpful. So comments or input from the subcommittee members on the commission? Commissioner
Thank you
Hess.
for bringing this forward to us. Appreciate all the work you've done on this. It's exponential. So talking about here, you mentioned City Commission training. Can you go a little bit more into that about how we all would be trained on using this tool?
So we have a few ways to do that. One of the first tools we have is our Custom Insight representative who can actually sit down and have a meeting with all of us to go over this tool. There's also a variety of reports from Custom Insight that are going to be included in some packets that I send over to you. So you can kind of read and skim through that. And we can provide any support along the way for that. I'd also like to sit down with everyone and present it so you can see it on the computer itself and how you'll actually be interacting with the tool.
Other questions or comments, particularly from, Commissioner Pradel?
I'll echo that as well. Really want to thank you, Shelley and Jessica, for all your work working with us. We probably had about 4 or 5 meetings, I'm going to guess, over the process. And initially started with trying to decide, like, what way could we do a 360 evaluation? And so you both brought forward some options where it might be a consultant that you bring in or an evaluation company. And a lot of those were incredibly expensive. Ended up finding that there's this tool that is actually pretty cost effective, but also provides a way to kind of digitize this process so it's not just an old school paper kind of evaluation Word document. And this has been something that's been a long time coming. I know it's been something that has been a pervasive request from the commission over the course of as long as I've been here in 4 years. So that's a real step forward. I think something that's really neat about it as well is that it has a feature where when the appointee does like a self-evaluation, that it can show if there's a gap between how the appointee sees themselves in their performance or how we or the cabinet level folks or directors level folks see in their performance. So it'll raise some of the larger gaps to the top so they can say, hey, you thought you were great on this, but according to the folks that are evaluating, maybe it's not, there's a disconnect here. So that's a really neat feature. It also allows us to kind of skim to the top the highest or lowest rated items so that we can kind of pinpoint those and figure out ways to really applaud the great stuff that's happening, but also some areas for growth and improvement. It still allows an opportunity for those written comments to pull together as well. So, I'm very excited about it. I also think that there's also potential to expand the universe, if you will, of who is involved in that 360 evaluation. Because of the timing, we really felt strongly that we need to move on this so that we don't end up in a situation where our appointees are getting their evaluations in June. We don't feel like that's fair. And the goal ultimately would be create a more real-time type scenario where, maybe it's on a more frequent basis than just once a year as well. I definitely am very excited about this, and I'm excited to see where we can potentially take this and grow that evaluation tool.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, and to HR for doing this as well. And I want to give a shout out to Commissioner Pradel and Hess for kind of spearheading this as well. I just want to say this was important to us because, a tool such as this is not to be punitive or to say what you're not doing, but it could also be a good way of seeing where you can improve and those things, like Commissioner Pradel said, like there are some times where I think I am just all of that, and people are like, no, you need to back that up. And so just looking at it so we can become better at our jobs and a better servant to our community, I thought it was very important that especially those who have been appointed to have something that has teeth to it. So thank you all so much for doing the good work that you all have done.
Thank you.
Other comments from Commission on this topic? Well, seeing at this point, I also want to say thank you very much, team, Director Juzik and Jessica, for helping us do this work and get this done. I can't tell you how many times we've had discussions over the years and years and years about our evaluation, whether it's effective or not, and trying to make it be a more useful tool rather than something that feels a bit perfunctory. So I really appreciate your assistance in helping us get there. I'm also expecting that the members of the subcommittee will be so capable in using this tool that they will be able to explain it to the rest of the members here on the commission. I assume that's the case. Okay. Commissioner Decker, did you want to say something?
I did. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, thank you guys for working on this because, as you know, with our frustration of having papers bring us, to the forefront of what we need to do. So we will have training for commission, correct?
Yes.
And will there also be training for the direct report?
So we're doing directors and commission.
Okay.
And we will have a date set for that soon. We don't have a date right now on the books, but as soon as this is moved forward, we can go ahead and set that date.
Thank you for that. And I know you guys have already kind of looked at this, but it's just kind of a question in my mind. Can you tell us about when we as commissioners and the direct reports do these evaluations, is there some sort of measurement that takes into account, say, if someone does not do the evaluation? Does that go for the individual, or would it go against the individual? Or I'm pretty sure the system that you guys have found has worked a way into that to where it would kind of not count that. How does that work? Because I know that was an issue in the past.
So it wouldn't count towards the evaluation if they didn't take that. So it's just sent out to the people that we send the rating tool to, and then it's comprised of those members. It won't count anyone who did not take the evaluation as far as rating anybody. People do have the ability to go in and mark NA on some instances where they are maybe not too comfortable rating that person because they don't have a reporting relationship to them or they don't know them well enough. But it will still be based off a percentage scale. There's other ways that they can set up the tool as well.
Thank you for that. I did have another question too. Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman. But when you said that individuals could go in and make NA if they're not direct reports, why would someone who's not a direct report be filling that out? I guess that would be my question. And is it anonymous? So say I fill out an evaluation. Well, I guess this is my question. Will I be able to, A, is it anonymous? I'll let you answer those first two.
Yes, it is anonymous.
And will we be able to see what our other team has written or at all, or no? Like, will we be able to see, will I be able to see what Commissioner Hoffman or Commissioner Pradel or someone else has written regarding that appointee? And will I be able to see what the direct reports have written, so we're able to see what they're saying also?
So the person who is being rated, they will be able to see the comments. They won't be able to see who it came from, and neither will anyone else who is rating unless we release that report to them. In terms of the direct reports, so it's going to be the directors. All directors will be rating all the appointees. So it's going to be based off of commission in one bucket and then directors in another bucket. So that's kind of how they're grouped together. That's the only differentiation you'll be able to see between them.
Okay, so we will not be able to see, say, what a direct report may have to say about who they report to. Is that what I'm hearing?
They'll be able to see the comments that are left, but it's going to be
perfect. That's what I was asking for. I don't need to see who, just, kind of see how they're feeling that their direct report is doing. Okay, that was my question. Thank you for this. I am excited for this. So I look forward to hearing what that cost is going to be.
It's not too bad.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Other comments, Director Dudzik?
I was going to mention to Commissioner Decker's question, you had a question on the NA part. So to be clear, I have a lot of interaction with the city manager and quite a bit with Attorney Leal. I don't have as much interaction with City Clerk Borling. So there may be areas, myself as a director, and I am rating, I may not be able to fairly rate because my interaction isn't the same. So I may choose the NA. So that's how that will come into play.
Thank you for that. And again, the NA will not count against the individual, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
That is correct. And I just wanted to point out, I want to make sure that we're differentiating between director and direct reports. There could be a confusion there because Attorney Leal would have direct reports, his staff in his office. They will not be rating. It's director level and commission.
Yes, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you,
Because
absolutely.
that could be a little confusing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So One thing I'd just like to say is that I really do appreciate the subcommittee work. Commissioner Hoffman, Commissioner Hess, Commissioner Pradel. A lot of times, these deeper dive things end up in subcommittees, and it comes back to us here. So thank you for the extra time you've spent on doing this important work. Appreciate it very much. Okay. All right. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Manager Wisma.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to acknowledge some special guests we have this evening. We have members from our 311 call center team here. We have our 311 customer service manager, Mimi Leak. And then we have 311 support specialists, Kate Blancy, Jennifer Dean Visser, Desanita Suarez Orozo, and Ava Bernard. So welcome, and these are the voices behind the calls you make. And that's it, Your Honor.
Okay. Now we are down to the portion of our agenda for commissioner comments. So just a reminder, there is a commissioner comment section at our business meeting at 7 o'clock. Are there any commissioner comments for the good of the order for the committee of the whole? All right, seeing none, thank you once again for everybody who attended this meeting, the committee of the whole, and hopefully you'll stick around and share some time with us for our business meeting at 7. We are adjourned.